His silence did not make you obsessed because it was deep. It made you obsessed because it left a space your mind tried to fill. The more he gave you nothing, the more you worked to make nothing mean something. It started with a simple moment. He pulled back without saying why. Not a fight, not a clear ending, just a sudden drop in effort, like the connection had been moved out of reach. You noticed the change right away. The tone was thinner. The warmth came and went. A question you asked was left there while your whole evening bent around it. You still cooked, still answered people, still moved through the room, but part of you stayed with that unanswered space. Then you began searching backward. You replayed the last conversation. You checked whether you had sounded too serious. You wondered if you had said too much or if your joke had landed wrong. Then you considered whether he was tired, needed room, or had left some hidden meaning inside the last thing he said. This is where the trap began. His silence turned into a puzzle, and you became the one responsible for solving it. He did not have to explain the distance. He did not have to say what changed. He did not have to carry the discomfort of being unclear, because you started carrying it for him. You were not only waiting to hear from him, you were trying to prove that the connection had been real, that you had not imagined the look, the attention, the way he once made you feel chosen. Every quiet hour became evidence to study. Not because silence is meaningful by itself, but because his earlier warmth made the silence feel unfinished. The first truth you avoided was not that he was busy. It was that a man can make you feel close, then leave you alone with the meaning of it. And once you accept that role, his absence starts having more power than his presence ever earned. You told yourself he was the kind of man who went quiet when he felt too much. That excuse came from one thing. He had shown enough interest to make the silence confusing. There had been attention, warmth, and moments when you did not have to wonder where you stood. So when he disappeared into silence, you did not treat it like distance at first. You treated it like something private happening inside him. You told yourself he might be overwhelmed or unable to say what he felt. Perhaps going quiet was simply how he handled closeness. Because that sounded kinder than the plain truth, it became easier to stay near a connection that was already making you unsure. There was a moment when you almost admitted it. You had your day in front of you, work to finish, food getting cold, someone asking if you were all right. Still, your mind kept returning to one question. If it meant nothing, why did it feel so strong before? That question protected him more than you noticed. Instead of looking at the silence as behavior, you used the memory of his warmth to explain it. You used the man he had been before to explain the man he was being now. You told yourself the quiet must have a reason, because it had felt too specific to be careless. But the excuse was doing something dangerous. It let you keep treating confusion like depth. It let you keep waiting for him to become clear while he stayed comfortable being unclear. It let you keep giving meaning to what he refused to say. The more you explained the silence for him, the less he had to show you anything solid. That is what the excuse allowed. It kept the connection open, not because he was returning with something clear, but because you were still doing the explaining for him. The silence was not just between you and him anymore. It entered parts of your life that had nothing to do with him. That is how you know it had become too powerful. You woke and felt the question before the day began. Not a clear thought. Just that drop in your stomach. Because there was still no answer. Before you stood up, your mood had already been handed to a man who had not spoken. At work, you looked present. You answered what needed answering. You nodded when someone talked. But your mind kept stepping out of the room. One part of you did the task in front of you. Another part tried to understand how he could go quiet after making you feel there was something there. That is the real cost of this silence. It does not only make you miss him, it makes you study yourself like you are the problem. You become careful with your words after he has already pulled away. You start editing memories. You turn a normal conversation into something you have to inspect. You wondered if you had sounded needy, expected too much, or should have been easier to deal with. While you were busy questioning yourself, his behavior stayed untouched. He got to be silent. You became responsible for the meaning of his silence. He gave no explanation, and somehow you carried the blame. Look at what that did. You delayed decisions because part of you was waiting to see where he stood. You became quieter with people who actually showed up. You smiled without being in the room. You let one man's absence decide whether you felt foolish, wanted, or rejected. His silence did not prove the connection was deep. It proved the connection had become uneven. When one person can disappear and the other person has to build the whole story alone, that is not mystery. That is work being pushed onto the person who cares more. And you were the one doing the work. You kept believing because the silence did not arrive alone. The silence came after he had already given you reasons to trust the connection. There had been days when his attention felt clear. You did not have to chase every answer or study every change in tone. That is why the distance confused you. You were not trying to create something from nothing. You were trying to understand why his behavior had changed. That is the human part of this. Your mind kept returning to the man who had once seemed present because the change had never been explained. There is no shame in being affected by that change. Sudden distance can make a steady woman start searching for a missing piece. Not because she has no sense, but because the shift feels unfinished. One day there is closeness, then there is absence. No one explains the space between the two. Still, care does not make the silence livable. Even if some part of him felt something, he still left you alone with uncertainty. Even if his earlier attention was real, the quiet required you to carry more than your share. A feeling that appears when he wants to give it, then disappears when you need steadiness, cannot be treated as enough. You may have stayed because the beginning felt honest. But the beginning was not the whole truth. It also included the days when you had to guess, soften hurt, and act calm, while his silence asked you to understand what he would not say. The part that kept you stuck was not only his silence, it was the work your mind did after it. Every blank space became a place where you tried to save the connection. So the way forward begins by interrupting that work. One place to notice the pattern is the moment your mind starts investigating again. You may be sitting at the table while your coffee gets cold. The day has barely started, and the old question arrives. What did he mean by going quiet? Before following that question, look only at what is actually in front of you. He has not answered or explained. At this moment, silence is the only fact you have. Your mind may immediately try to add a secret reason, a hidden feeling, or blame against yourself. That is the work that keeps the blank space alive. In that ordinary moment, one plain sentence may be enough. I do not have enough from him to keep building a story. That sentence is not revenge or coldness. It is a way of putting the responsibility back where it belongs. If he wants to be understood, he can speak clearly. If he wants the connection to stay alive, he can bring more than absence. That is where your role begins to change. You are no longer trying to prove the connection was real. by studying what he withholds. You are looking at what is real today. The focus is no longer what he might mean, how he once sounded, or what you wish his silence was hiding. Just the fact in front of you. And the more you stop feeding the blank space with your own explanations, the smaller his silence becomes. It may still hurt, but it no longer gets to run the whole room.